I'm now joined by Christophe Lemoine, spokesperson for the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. Christophe, thank you so much for joining me. President Macron has been speaking today, calling for a return to negotiations. UK, French and German foreign ministers are holding talks with their Iranian counterpart in Geneva today. What difference can today's talks make as the strikes do continue between Israel and Iran?
As you know, France and their European partners never gave up on negotiation with Iran. That's what we've been doing for the last 20 years, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years when Iran was escalating with its nuclear program. What's new in the situation now is that there are, strikes between Iran and Israel, and this escalation presents different risks for the stability of the region. So France is convinced that the only way forward is to go with the negotiation and to go back to the negotiation table. This is what we're doing today in Geneva with our British and German partners and the Iranian Minister for Foreign Affairs.
How much sway does France have over the US? Because we saw Trump hastily left the G7 and he actually lashed out at President Emmanuel Macron. He said, Emmanuel always gets it wrong. Were you expecting such a position from the US president?
Well, the strength of the French position is that we've been consistent. And we've been consistent in saying that there is no other solution than negotiation. So this is what I think Emmanuel Macron expressed during the G7 summit in Canada last week. And this is what he said, especially to President Trump. Again, there is no military solutions to the nuclear crisis in Iran. The only way forward is negotiation. And I think this is the strength of the French position, is that we've been consistent with that for the last years, and I think Iranians know it.
And there was meant to be a French-Saudi summit happening right now in New York to announce the recognition of Palestine as a state. Has Israel's war on Iran weakened the invitation to recognize a Palestinian state? Has that now been forgotten by France?
Absolutely not. The conference on the two-state solution was a conference that was carried by France and Saudi Arabia in the perspective of trying to find out a political solution to the crisis in Gaza and in the West Bank. This conference was postponed due to logistical consideration. Indeed, with the airspace closed in Israel, it was impossible for President Abbas to reach New York. So the conference is postponed, but it's still very high on the priorities of the French government.
And if we're talking about US involvement when it comes to Israel and Iran, that's something Donald Trump says he's going to make that decision within 2 weeks. What's the message from the French government on involvement from the US in this conflict?
Well, the message from France is very simple, is to avoid escalation. The military operations that are happening right now are already very dangerous for the region and for the stability of the region. And further operation and more operation will endanger very seriously the stability of the region. So the message is very clear, is de-escalate and go back to the negotiation table.
And what threat does escalation actually bring to the Middle East region?
Well, the escalation is very, very dangerous. There is a risk that the situation will get out of hand, and in a region that is already, with instability. So this is, there is something very dangerous in escalating in the Middle East.
Macron is warning against the temptation to force regime change in Iran. Why is he calling that a strategic mistake?
Well, because, he refers to past experiences of regime change from the exterior with military operations, and that never worked. But also, and I think this is the most important, Emmanuel Macron recalls that the main point of the crisis today is the Iranian nuclear program. This is what has to be tackled. This is not a question of regime change. The first priority is tackling with the nuclear program of Iran.
So what solutions can France offer as a party with historical credibility in the Middle East?
Well, first of all, and this is what President Macron announced this morning, France will offer a package for Iran, a package with 4 items in it. A first item on the nuclear program, a second item on the ballistic program, another item on releasing all the hostages that are held in Iran, and a fourth item about the global security in the region. And this package is discussed at the moment in Geneva between the French minister and his British and German counterparts, and then it will be presented to the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we hope that this package could offer a good platform to start the discussions on.
So you talk about the package there that can be offered by France. They're talking about it in Geneva today. But as we are talking, there's still strikes happening between Israel and Iran, and civilians are dying in both countries. Is this enough, or does something more need to be happened? Because we know negotiations take a long time, and can the world just set back and let this carry on?
This is the call that President Macron repeated this morning. Each civilian died is one civilian too much, and those operations must stop right away.
And then when we're talking about citizens, French citizens in Iran and in Israel at the moment, what is the government doing to support those people in the region and make sure that they are safe?
Well, this is the priority of the French diplomatic services in Israel and in Iran. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Noël Barrot, made very important announcement yesterday as far as the help that will be offered to the French citizens living in Iran and French citizens living in Israel. They'll be offered now the possibility, if they want, on a voluntary basis, to leave those countries and to be able to be back safe in France. And this is what is carried out at the moment by the crisis center of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in France here in Paris.
And Christophe, we obviously can't ignore the situation that's happening in Gaza, and a joint statement from the leaders of the UK, France and Canada on the situation in Gaza and the West Bank wasn't that many months ago. It was condemning Israel's actions. Do you still feel the same way, and do you support them more on the issue in Iran than on the issue in Gaza?
No, absolutely. We're still very focused as well on the situation in Gaza. And in this situation, again, we've been calling for a political solution with a two-state solution that will be able to give both Israelis and Palestinians the possibility to live in safety and in security next to each other. And that, we think, is still one priority that we have to carry. And we were talking about this conference on the two-state conference. This conference will have to happen, and will have to happen soon, so that we'll be able to move on this issue as well, because this is also a situation that is not bearable. As operation continues, as the humanitarian aid is blocked, as there are still civilians dying in Gaza, this has to stop. And the only way out, there again, is a diplomatic way, is a political way to be able to build, a strong political process.
And Christophe, just before I let you go, you did mention the nuclear talks that were happening with Iran, but they were in discussions, in negotiations with the US ahead of this Israeli attack on Iran. Do you believe that Iran was close to producing a nuclear weapon, or maybe they weren't? What do you think the situation there is?
Well, the situation is that in the last 2 years, Iran has been, moving on with its nuclear program, and they've been, gaining steps and steps and steps. And so we've been condemning it constantly, but Iran was very active. So I cannot tell you if they were close or not close to have a nuclear weapon. What is true is that they were moving on very quickly, and this was a great matter of concern.
Christophe Lemoine, spokesperson for the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. A pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.